G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to Star Citizen and my Star Citizen 2016 breakdown video. First up, this stream was long, and I want to keep this video relatively short, so we'll only be covering the central areas of interest from the main presentation. Now the background video today is from the Homestead presentation. This is the Planetary Tech V2 demo. This was breathtaking. I'm going to be editing most of the talking out of the background by switching in various musical tracks in order to keep the whole thing flowing. And I'll be editing in small picture-in-picture video clips that reference each of the topic areas that were covered during the course of the presentation. Sorry, every time I watch this I get a little bit blown away. This was breathtaking. It really was. The Planetary Tech V2 is possibly one of the most impressive things that I've seen in video gaming, and this was a real brilliant way to start the demo section of the stream. If anybody hasn't seen this whole thing without my ugly mug talking over the top of it before, I'll have a link in the comment section below to the full and complete 2016 CitizenCon stream. I fully recommend you go through and watch it, but I'll also be sure to put in a link to the start time of the actual demo period. I mean, look at this, just down to ground levels. There is actually one thing extra I'd like to point out. The majority of this demo is done on a desert world. Now this, at first glance, would seem like the easy option out. I mean, a desert's just sand and rolling hills, but the reality is it's actually one of the most difficult things to render. Deserts are all-rounded objects. There's a lot of smoothness. Sand flows like water, but it stays in place. And more importantly than that, in an open desert area, you can't do the trick of making a very pretty tree and using that tree to cover up mistakes in your terrain. Everything is bare. You cannot cover anything up because, well, it wouldn't be a desert if it had a forest in the middle of it, would it? Anyways, I hope you enjoy the visuals for the background, and let's go through each of the talking points for CitizenCon 2016.
They missed it. Yeah. He actually says hello, CitizenCon, but you guys are all laughing when you saw the guy.
I actually really enjoyed that part. So anyways, first up we have Spectrum. Now, the Spectrum presentation was long. It felt like it dragged on, and I have a sneaking suspicion as to why, but I'll come to that towards the end of the video. Basically, Spectrum is both a standalone and integrated application that mixes the features of Discord, Facebook, Twitter, the official forums, all together. It can be accessed via the game via MobiGlass menu system, or it can be downloaded as an app for your PC, tablet, or smartphone. It will allow you to access all communications from text to voice over IP from any location at any time, even allowing you to contact players currently in the game from your phone while you're at work. It also features real-time forum activity, so it auto-updates and is able to notify you of any messages or communications you've received, and again you can respond from anywhere. The system will also have all of the organizational controls and options integrated, allowing Spectrum users to talk to anyone, monitor anything, and organize everyone in their org, all from one application. And as a bonus, Spectrum's rollout will also coincide with Star Citizen's new update system, which will shrink potential download sizes for patches from, over 20 gig, the entire size of the client, down to one, maybe a couple, or potentially less. Now, it sounds like it's going to be a great program, ideal for those operating organizations or even multiple organizations, and it's made by the guys from Turbulence that also made the award-winning Arc Star map for Star Citizen. If you haven't jumped on the website to check one out, you really should. It's incredible what they've managed to do inside of a web browser. So I have no doubt that it will be a fantastically made program, but I have seen programs like this in other games before, and they have often been ignored by the user base in favour of existing third-party programs like Discord and so on. Only time will tell whether or not Spectrum is actually going to be successful. I'm pretty sure it's going to be used by those that have to use it, but I'm not entirely sure how much of its features will be used. Well, will people use the voice over IP option, or will they still stick to Discord? In the end, I guess only time is going to tell. Next up was a sale announcement that started with a video that looked very much like an ad for Squadron 42 to begin with. This may have been why some people have taken it a little poorly. Regardless, Chris Roberts announced the general sale for the Polaris, which we already knew was coming, and then there was also announced the current sale. Most of the rare UE military and civilian combat vessels are now on the market again for a limited time. I believe that is until the 17th of this month. Chris also said this.
And I mean, the one thing I do want to say, though, because I know this sort of sometimes is a bit of debate and controversy, it is your... No one needs to get a big fancy spaceship or anything else. If you spend $40 or $45 and do it, that's all you need. But the way I look at it is, getting a Corvette or whatever, a Constellation, is really just supporting development. I mean, that's kind of the way it looks like. And so for me, it should only be if someone's saying, you know what, I really like what these guys are doing. I want to support it. I love the process, and I'm there, and they're giving me a cool ship in the process. That's the way it should be, nothing more, nothing less, because you will absolutely be able to earn everything in-game playing, right?
Always nice to hear from the man himself not to buy unless you want to support the project, and once again confirmation that all ships will be available in-game for in-game money at launch. And so at this point we finally come into the Squadron 42 information. Not a whole lot here that we didn't know before. We did get some numbers for chapters and missions. 28 chapters with 60 missions plus to be exact. 340 speaking roles with a story arc containing 1,255 pages of dialogue. Dreadnoughts were confirmed in this. I don't actually remember if they were before, but they are now regardless. With 40 ships and stealth gameplay. That caught my eye. We actually haven't seen anything on stealth so far. Everything else was pretty much already known. At that point, Chris Roberts decided to have a little bit of a Shia LaBeouf moment.
Just do it!
And then we skip to the tech and status updates. Looks like AI items and optimizations are the only real issues left for the single player. As for the update, it's all pretty much in grey box at this point, or untextured, unfinished, but otherwise intact and just ready for final work and polish to be done. This can take time, however, with 60 plus missions on everything from planets to other ships, space stations. There's still a lot of work to be done. I had hope after the amazing gameplay demo at Gamescom this year that we might actually see Squadron 42 by Christmas or at least before New Year's, but Chris Roberts had this to say on the matter.
So that's my long-winded way of saying that as much as we wanted to have Squadron 42 for this year, is not going to be this year because from the polish we need to do, it still needs a bit more time.
Honestly, it's a little disappointing, but at exactly the same time, it's ready when it's ready. I didn't get into Star Citizen because I wanted a space game. I got into Star Citizen because I wanted the space game. And let's be honest here, we're looking at a single-player campaign with over 60 missions in it, over 28 chapters, with a graphical fidelity the same as or better than what you're seeing on screen right now. GTA 5 took 7 years to make, Skyrim took nearly 10. I can wait 5 years for Squadron 42, just do it! So, following the Squadron 42 announcements, we got into a detailed patch timeline with some hardship release numbers and some focus to the patches. Now, there was a lot of information here, so I'm going to run through these relatively quickly. First up was a patch 2.6 progress update. Looks like we have Star Marine confirmed as the new SM features are being added, along with some Arena Commander updates. The PU is being expanded again, so more to do there, and the talked about flight model rebalance is going to be in as well as a new music system and a camera system update. Most of this was already known, but it was nice to have it confirmed. The Arena Commander update includes a ship upgrade interface, so you'll be able to modify your ship now on the fly before combat, rather than having to go back to the hangar or to the persistent universe in order to make modifications to your ship. Reloads will now be dropped by ships in PvP and in Vandal Swarm, and you can collect them and they will reload your ship's guns. The scoring system is getting an overhaul, and apparently most ships are now available for use in private matches in Arena Commander, which means I may be able to get my Connie vs Connie Racing League up and running. So after the Arena Commander update was a Star Marine update. Star Marine looks to include 2 maps with 2 game modes, along with a whole host of new armors, weapons, grenades, along with looting for item drops and awards. Nothing surprising here, mostly generic FPS stuff, but again, nice to have some confirmation. Okay, at this point we started getting serious. Patch 3.0 update. Patch 3.0 will be the update for the Santon system. It includes the new basic professions: trading, cargo transport, piracy, smuggling, mercenary work, and the Humble Bounty Hunter. Looking forward to that one. The Santon system looks to be finally receiving its full rollout with this patch. This will include planetary landings on the bodies around the Santon system and of course at ArcCorp. This is likely also be the patch that will actually directly integrate ArcCorp, which was a second part of the Star Citizen Persistent Universe, into the main PU at this point. The new ships for 3.0 will include the Ursa rover, which you have seen in this video, the Drake Dragonfly, the Caterpillar and the Constellation Aquila that appeared at the very start of this demo. So 3.0 looks absolutely fantastic at this time, and then they went and announced what's in patch 3.1. 3.1 is the mining and refining update. The patch will include mining, refining, quantum interdiction, refueling and escort professions. The solar system will be expanded, that is the Santon solar system. New ships include the Cutlass Red and Blue, the Hull C, the Prospector, and finally the 85X. So 3.1 sounds absolutely fantastic, so wonder what 3.2 is going to be like. Well, they gave us that one as well. 3.2 is the repair and salvage patch, and by this time I'm sure you're seeing a bit of a theme here. Each patch is focused around a number of professions, and the vehicles that are released within the patch are in relation to those vehicles. It's also likely that the changes to the Santon system will be related to those roles as well. So anyway, as I said, repair and salvage is the name of the game in patch 3.2. The new professions are salvage, repair and covert ops mercenary, which seems like an odd one. The new ships are the Constellation Taurus, the Constellation Phoenix, which are the two missing Constellation models at the moment, the Terrapin, the Vanguard and Harbinger, and of course the Reclaimer, which is the primary salvage ship inside of Star Citizen. And surely that was all they released, right? No. Patch 3.3. 3.3 is the Farming and Rescue update. Professions include farming and rescue, as well as additional solar system locations, and the ships that will be released is the Carrack, the 980 Jump, the Banu Merchantman, and all variants of the Reliant. And surely we're going to stop there. But no, there's more. Patch 4.0. Now this, I promise, is actually the last one. Patch 4.0 is called Jump Point, and that is a very telling title. Travel to multiple star systems, exploration and discovery professions, science and research professions will also be added. New solar system locations will be added along with the Orion and Crucible as the available ships. Now, at that point, we're no longer trapped in the Santon system. That is, we are now starting to explore the surrounding systems. How many systems are going to be available? I don't know. It doesn't actually list. But if I had to make an assumption, knowing the rate of patch releases that SIG generally pulls out, and if they can keep everything at a fairly stable rate, 4.0 is probably about a year away, maybe a little more, and is likely also to become Beta 1.0. If it doesn't become Beta 1, I would expect that 4.0 may be the last alpha patch before the game goes into beta testing before final release. Now what brings me to that assumption? Well, Chris Roberts is an old school games developer, so alphas are alphas, betas are betas. He takes them pretty seriously. Alpha development is for adding mechanics to the game and making sure they work. Beta development is for polishing them. According to that timeline, by Alpha 4, all the key professions will be in, all of the key ships required for those key professions will be in, and every single game mechanic will be present within the game. It will just need to be polished. I of course can't say for sure, I could be wrong about this, it is a guess, but I would strongly expect that patch 4 would be the last alpha patch, or the first beta patch. It just seems to make sense considering the structure of these patches. So moving on from this point, we went to the Homestead demo, or the Planets V2 demo, which we've actually been watching since this video started running. It is amazing. It really was. There's no other way to put it. Every bit as good as the demo from Gamescom just a few months ago. In many ways, this is actually a better demo. But yeah, don't take my word for it. I've been editing this one in the background, cutting most of the vocals out of it and replacing it with music, so it makes a nice smooth flow to watch while I am going over this recap. But if you check the video description down below, I've got a link to the actual presentation already there. Be sure to click on it if you haven't already watched it, and watch the entire thing from start to finish. It was impressive the whole way through. After watching the Homestead demo, we moved on to the editing software demonstration. Sean Tracy led this part and began to show the tools that allowed the environment to come into play, and I have to say they look really simple to use. I mean, think if I knew them, I could have used them. Again, this is something you have to watch, but to put it short, a small outpost was created complete with mountains, vegetation, organics, water, everything in about 10 minutes or less, and looked really impressive. At the speed that they were able to put this environment together, I honestly would be really surprised if it takes anything more than a couple of weeks for a single artist to put together an entire planet, and that I would assume to be a fairly complex planet. A relatively barren one with a very small amount of life and very small amount of terrain features, which there are some in the star map like that, barren planets. I would expect they could knock these out in a matter of days. And to top it off, without leaving the editing tools, the level designer or artist can enter the game and walk around testing their newly created environment completely before it has a chance to be sent to Q&A. This didn't actually catch me by surprise. I've known of a few products that can actually do this, but what did catch me by surprise was how seamless it was. 1 minute it was editing tools, the next minute I was watching the artist get inside of a spaceship and start flying it around. From that point, they demoed that the system was real and not on rails again by jumping from the demo world to the orbiting moon, consisting of sulfuric lakes and the most beautiful sunset I have ever seen in a video game. And this is where things got very interesting. A second ship jumped in, and a familiar voice popped up. It was Mark Hamill's voice. So the second ship has to be his character of Lieutenant Commander Steve Colton, otherwise known as the Old Man. He quantum jumps out, and so does the player, to a point in dead space with an Idris directly in front of us. This is the first time we've ever seen an Idris flying in space that I'm aware of, and right as we see it, Sean Tracy appears to be instructed to shut the demo down. Now I just want to play a little clip from Chris Roberts earlier on in this stream, one that I skipped over so far, but just have a listen to it here.
Currently taking one of the chapters of the story all the way to what we would consider final shipping quality. The idea would be to flush out all the technical integration and polish issues you would get with that. And that was actually, I gave an interview, 3 weeks ago, probably spoke too soon, on this thing. We were hoping to show you a Squadron 42 mission, and we're not quite there yet. So we got very close. The team worked really hard, but we don't want to show it until we say this is what it's going to be like in the final game with all the polish. And for our standpoint, we don't want to show something too early on Squadron 42. We want to show the final stuff. So I know that's a bit of a bummer, but it's important because I think Squadron 42 itself is going to be in a fantastic experience. But there is, work in progress. Star Citizen, yes, I think work in progress on Squadron 42. I don't really want to do because I am accused of being a bit of a perfectionist, but it does need to be a great experience.
Now, there has been a lot of flack floating around for Squadron 42 not being there, and as I said earlier on, I was a little disappointed by it myself. But this particular clip at the end, with the Idris just fading out and the apparent urgency to shut down the stream at that point, coupled with this little statement here, I don't think people quite realised straight away exactly how close we probably were to getting Squadron 42. I actually imagine it was right there. If that demo had been allowed to continue at that point, I believe that would have been the sequence for the live demo. Start off with the Homestead, go into the tools for creation, and from the sulfuric world actually jump straight into the Squadron 42 demo and play on from that point after the player lands on the Idris. I also have a strong feeling that this is probably why there was the delay in the stream in the first place. The official statement on why the stream took an hour to get going was that the projector broke down and they had to reboot it and fix it to get all of the presentation, the slideshows up and running. I don't think that was really it. I think it's probably got more to do with the fact that they were rewriting the entire presentation, because up until that last hour they were fighting to try and get Squadron 42 in, and it just didn't quite make it. And that's likely also why the demo ended so abruptly, because they were fighting to get it in for so long, they never had a chance to tidy up the end of that demo and make that Idris and that little Squadron 42 part disappear. The upside is we'll probably get to see the Squadron 42 demo in the very near future on Around the Verse, or possibly at one of the upcoming anniversary streams. I believe there's 2 more left to go before the end of the year. It could be at one of those. And at this point, it really was the end of CitizenCon in a real hurry. It did just kind of stop abruptly, which also makes me think that their idea was to run out the Squadron 42 demo and then say their goodbyes right at the end of it as the whatever the exit or the outro for the Squadron 42 demo was going to be. But because they didn't have that, they brought out a table, put a cake on it, celebrated Star Citizen's 4th anniversary, Called the location for CitizenCon 2017, and that was where the stream ended. So it was very short after that point, which really does sort of sell that they didn't really have anything planned at that point. It had all gone wrong. I really do think that the entire end of that stream was probably just winged. They didn't really have anything planned for it at all. But anyways, so Squadron 42 wasn't there. Did that turn the stream into a total shit show? Not in the slightest. It was disappointing that it wasn't there. I would have loved to have seen it. I was really hyped to actually finally get a look at what Squadron 42 was. It not being there and the announcement that Squadron 42 is probably not going to make it this year as well. Yeah, it was a little bit of a down note, but it didn't ruin it. The Homestead demo was fantastic. I could never have imagined Star Citizen was going to look that good on the ground. It's enough to make me want to do even more in the way of exploration. And the other thing was all of the little things that popped through that many people missed. For example, if you would pay close attention to the constellation Aquila as it was coming in for landing, it has working suspension now. The suspension compressed as it came in for landing rather than just striking hard landing gear against hard surface and bouncing a little bit, which is what happens in the current iterations of the PU. The same suspension is applied to the Ursa rover. I also noticed when flying around on the Dragonfly, the vessel seems to slowly or more slowly drop towards the ground than it did in the Gamescom demo just a few months ago. It appears to handle a little bit better as well. The other two major things we got to see, besides obviously the terrain improvements, we had atmospheric scattering. I was blown away by how amazing that looked, and then to top it off, the sandstorm on the approach to the wrecked Javelin, and the big massive dune sandworm that came with it. This was our first look at the actual atmospheric weather effects and what it can actually create, and that sandstorm. Alright, that sandstorm was obviously pre-organised to be there, but it doesn't mean it didn't look amazing, and that is going to be terrifying to try and operate inside of, especially if you're exploring an uncharted world in the middle of nowhere. And then the sandworm as well, confirmation of large predatory and potentially extremely dangerous life forms on planets. Yeah, I can see myself probably getting eaten by one of those at some point, so that's going to be fun. In all honesty, when I first finished watching the live streams the first time through, I was disappointed, but there were so many little things that I ended up missing. There's a hell of a lot more than I've just mentioned as well, but I don't have time to go through them all here. Watching it through a second or a third time in the process of editing this together made me realise exactly how much I was seeing and how much I was actually taking for granted in front of me. This was a tech demo. We didn't get to see a gameplay demo of Squadron 42. This is entirely true, but we will probably get to see one of those before the end of the year, so we just gotta wait a little bit longer. What we did get to see was some of the most impressive technology that I've ever had the privilege to witness in a video game. If they can get what we're seeing here into the Star Citizen project, if they can actually make this work in a live game environment, this is a game that's graphical fidelity isn't going to be beaten by anything but itself when it finally updates. It is incredible. Anyways, ladies and gents, I think that's just about enough for me. Thank you very much for watching. Please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you guys think. And as always, please click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.